Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm just hanging out again with my friend Bill Spadea. We're having a really good time, and we were talking about what's going on in this crazy world. I just can't get over the fact, Bill, what the heck is going on in this world? I just want to scream.
Things are nuts. Things are nuts, Larry. First of all, great to be here and great to be with all of you on Facebook Live. Last time we did this, I got him knocked off of YouTube.
Yeah, you got me canned from YouTube.
And I don't even know what to say about it. We were talking about vaccines. So for all of the fact checkers out there on social media, today's show's not about vaccines. We may talk about a few other controversial things, but not that. So hopefully, Larry, we're going to keep
I got to tell you a funny story about that. So the other
nuts.
day,
they knocked you right off, right?
Yeah, no, it was within 4 hours. They
Ridiculous.
shut my channel down. I can't even get back on it. But
Silly.
but I have other channels. But I got to tell you a funny story about that.
Yeah.
So the next day, I was all mad, and I did my frustration and my rants that I do. Everybody watching my show knows about my rants. So I did my rant, and I said, "Let me test this. I want to do some medical misinformation." So I said, I just heard that the best way to cure cancer is to start smoking. The best way to lose weight is to eat 7,000 calories a day, and the best way to avoid a heart attack is to stop taking your blood pressure medicine. And I didn't get any flags or nothing. So what is medical?
COVID.
What's medical misinformation?
It's all about COVID.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Where do you even start with what's crazy in the world today? I mean, we could talk about. I don't know if you saw just a couple hours ago, Facebook, Twitter, everything blew up because the Florida Senate voted, I think it was 23-16, to take away Disney's special tax exemption.
You know what? I'm so glad you talked about this because
that's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a really big deal, and they deserve it.
I agree. I think that some of the chatter was saying, "Wow, is this going to hurt the taxpayers of Florida, etc." Not at all. Florida is booming. Florida opened up before anybody else. Florida, literally, Ron DeSantis had them closed maybe for 10 minutes. And then they retooled and reopened. The schools were open by the following semester. Spring breakers were down there.
Yeah.
Their economy is doing so well. And I think the challenge with Disney is that, let's face it, they were not paying their fair share. We see this with a lot of universities, in a lot of university towns across the country, particularly in New Jersey, you see this, where an institution like Princeton will not pay their fair share, and the burden falls to the taxpayers. You look at Disney's special tax status, who knows how much they were not paying into the coffers. Hundreds of millions a year? Could be, I think one estimate said it could be as high as $200 million a year.
So they also had their own government there too. Well, kind of, I would say their own government, their own police.
Well, they're like their own
right,
municipality,
exactly,
essentially.
Right. So did that all go away too? I didn't read the article, so
they changed all of their status, and it all comes down to the fact that Disney was essentially using their power and money to go after the state of Florida on this bill that was completely mischaracterized. Talk about misinformation. They called it "Don't Say Gay."
Right.
That was not what it was. It was literally targeted at getting all of the transition, gender identity, all of this wildly radical, sexualized agenda out of kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade. So anybody that's opposed to getting sex ed out of kindergarten through 3, you got to get your head checked.
Yeah,
so Disney was going on full-on mission to change that, and DeSantis.
I had a shirt made just for you.
Yeah, I see that.
So you have to see this, right? It said teachers leave those kids alone.
I love it. Little Pink Floyd reference.
It has
love
the
that.
whatever, I don't know, the hand up with the gay and the lesbian, and it has crossed out. Then it has the mask crossed out. Then it has the vaccine crossed out, right? And it just says,
well, it kind of matches the jacket, Larry.
Decide. Yeah, right.
I'll tell you, right? Kind of matches the jacket.
Let parents decide.
So let's segue to something that happened today that I was talking about on the radio. So I'm on NJ 1015 in the morning, 6 to 10 a.m., as Larry has mentioned before. And by the way, if you're watching this now, go to this website, the number 4, mmw.com. We're hosting a huge event at the Washington Crossing Inn on Sunday, April 24th. I'll be there for the luncheon. It's going to be awesome. Great stuff, financial advice.
I think we only have like 6 seats left, too.
Really?
Yeah,
I knew you were going to sell it out.
We pretty much sold that out, yeah.
Well, the station has such a reach now. I mean, you've got a great network,
we didn't get anything
too.
from the station.
See, there you go. There you go. That's it. No. But it's going to be a great event. It's going to be this Sunday, April 24th, all about recovering your finances after COVID and the lockdowns and all the nonsense. So if you want some financial input, financial advice, my contribution to this is not so much to give financial advice, but kind of give the lay of the land as far as what government is doing, what organizations are fighting back against government overreach. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Common Sense Club. My website is commonsenseclub.org, and the Small Business Protection Act that we're working on right now, because this idea that government decides which businesses are essential, absolutely outrageous.
So, by the way, real quick, if anybody wants to, tonight we're going to be hanging out also in Newtown. We're going to be at the Temperance House. So if you guys want to hang out and just hang out, we're just going to be talking just like this.
We're doing a happy hour. We'll be there around 5:15, 5:30, and I've got a heart out at 6:15.
Just don't tell
So
anybody
get there before 6 o'clock. You know what happens?
Okay.
We're so busy now. So we took our million-plus listeners on 101.5, and I said, okay, we've got a great movement of people. My market share during the pandemic doubled, which was outstanding, because it was people looking for a voice that was saying the things that they were thinking.
Right.
And we did it. So I thought, well, we have to organize that. So we launched Common Sense Club. It's a 501c4, and the idea of the Common Sense Club...
I meant to ask you that.
Yeah.
That's great, okay.
We did that because we are a policy and issues advocacy group. And the idea is, how many thousands of people can we offer a vehicle to educate voters, sign up voters, get people motivated, and not get involved directly in campaigns, which is not... Now, we also have a PAC and a 501c3, so we're going in that direction as well, just kind of building it out. But so far, as of today, 35,000 members.
That's awesome, man.
35,000.
That's awesome. And I got to tell you, and Bill knows, and you guys know, I'm a big contributor to this. I think this is so important.
You're a founding member, Larry.
Yeah,
we appreciate it. Yeah.
And it's in New Jersey, but you have to understand that New Jersey is 20 minutes from here, so I know what's coming. And I also know, and I'm trying to get Bill to try to get more involved on this side of the bridge because of the things he's doing. He's doing some amazing things.
My listenership in Bucks County is huge now.
Yeah,
because of all the expats.
It's only huge because I keep talking about you.
Well, and you, Larry, of course. But so many people have left Jersey to go to Pennsylvania. So look, I can still work in Trenton. I can work in Newark. I can work anywhere on the Jersey side. But why would I pay Jersey taxes? And that's part of what we're doing to say, let's pull back. But I want to go back to what you had said about Disney and everything else. So we generated thousands of parents through our website, generated 25,000 letters that went to legislators and the governor saying, stop this sexualization of the school curriculum in grade school. Parents got mad, the governor backed down. So now they are saying, oh, well, we're going to reevaluate what is age appropriate. The problem is that you got a bunch of rhinos, some of these very moderate Republicans that, not even moderate, I mean, moderate, some people call me a moderate because of some of my stances on immigration and other things. I wouldn't call myself that, but that has kind of lost meaning. These are not moderates, they're not even rhinos. They are legislators who are out for their own ambition, their own friends, their money, their own special interests. It's not about the people anymore. So a couple guys that have really crossed the line, guy named Tom Kean Jr., state senator, former state senator, now running for Congress. Problem is, he was the Republican leader in the state Senate for the 2 years while Murphy was rolling over everybody's civil liberties, everybody's medical liberties.
Did nothing.
Did nothing.
All of these Republicans did nothing.
Now he wants a promotion. He wants to run for Congress.
Yeah, right.
But I have been pointing out, here's a guy, Tom Kean Jr., who supported critical race theory, supported funding Planned Parenthood. And again, forgetting liberal and conservative and where you stand on the abortion issue, I want to know why the taxpayers of New Jersey have to spend any money on Planned Parenthood. They're one of the most well-funded organizations out there.
It's a private organization.
It's outrageous.
The government should not be giving money to Planned Parenthood.
No.
Look, and whether you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion or pro-choice, whatever the heck you are, it's a private organization.
Right. It's not
Stop
about the government. Right.
You want. I mean, if you're dumb enough to contribute to this, that's fine, but you're allowed to. But no way that the government should be giving money to Planned Parenthood. Who okayed this?
And the problem is, Larry, that they're disingenuous. So I pointed out, it goes back to Chris Christie, who I was not a fan of. But Chris Christie was smart enough to redline the $9 million from Planned Parenthood, not as a pro-life, pro-choice issue, but as a budget issue.
Sure.
And the Republican side, for their part in this last election, refused to commit to that. Tom Kean Jr. supported funding Planned Parenthood. Why is it an issue? Well, after we punched the Democratic majority in the nose with this nonsense of sexualized curriculum with our 25,000 parent letters, Tom Kean, the day after the governor said, all right, we're going to reevaluate, launched his own petition saying, see, I've always stood with parents. Well,
Unbelievable.
a little late. So
Unbelievable.
the
Yeah.
point that I'm making is that we now know there's a great movement of parents out there that are saying we've had enough. It's about taking control of our education system, about protecting our children from these nefarious characters that are coming in my opinion, to groom and recruit into some very, very radical transgender political movement. This is way beyond tolerance, way beyond understanding people who have this terrible condition of gender dysphoria. This is about an outright recruitment effort to bring young children, separate them from their families, and get them into this political movement.
Look,
and
when
it's
you were
got
a
to stop.
kid-
And people are waking up to it.
When you were a kid, did you put your mom's shoes on, or maybe even accidentally? I should say accidentally, but like they put lipstick on because you saw your mom do it.
I didn't, but
Okay. I mean,
kids
honestly,
do.
funny, I didn't either,
Well,
but
Larry,
I've heard about people who've done it.
Yeah, but you know what though? But the joke going around is my son thought he was a dinosaur for a time.
Right,
He
right.
was, in
He identified as a
nursery
dinosaur.
school. Exactly, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
was he-
But
was he
the
crushing the teachers'
kids-
heads, or?
Well, actually, it was funny. He and his babysitter, they would literally eat off the floor because he was a
that's funny.
dinosaur for
Okay.
a while. And it was, the point is, kids have these great
Right, yeah,
imaginations. He
exactly.
didn't really think it was a dinosaur, and he grew up not to be
Exactly.
a dinosaur. But the
Right.
point is that you've got kids that are waiting for Santa Claus to come down the chimney and give them gifts. You're waiting for the Easter Bunny to deliver packages and candy. You can't take it seriously.
No,
that a kid
absolutely
at 5,
not.
6, 7 years old can make a
Absolutely not.
decision on what gender they are. It's outrageous.
Yes, yeah,
So-
and then you got parents pushing it because they
Well,
think
that's
they're
the
supposed
problem.
to, and then you got the worst
they don't
part,
wanna
you
be
got
called
the
the bigot.
teachers doing it. The teachers doing it. Oh,
I find most teachers don't want to, though. They're in a
Okay.
really, really bad spot. They're saying, why are they thrusting this nonsense on us? It's not fair. They don't want to teach it. They want to teach what they're there to teach.
Exactly.
History,
Exactly.
social studies, arithmetic, science, real science, not this junk
DeSantis
political
turned down
science.
53 books in Florida because math books because they had critical race theory in
Right.
math books.
Well, that's the thing. There is no, and that was kind of the point I was driving to was, there's no parental opt-out when they infuse this propaganda into the history classes, into the science classes, and into the math classes. So you want to say, well, we're going to teach gender identity and health, and don't worry, Mom and Dad, you can opt out. That does two things that not appropriate. Number one, parents should not be in a position where they have to opt out of health class
Absolutely,
because
right.
they're teaching something that is age inappropriate. That's number one. Number two, most parents are trying to put food on the table and they've got a lot going on, and they're not going to want to pull their kid out and ostracize them because it will be a small minority of parents who are that engaged. So you're going to have a couple of kids that opt out. They're going to be pushed aside. There's no accounting for the bullying that will take place, the name calling, and this isolation. So the bottom line is the opt-out is a crock. The opt-out is a scam, and that's the problem. There's a state senator in New Jersey. His name is Vin Gopal. And Vin, if you're listening, or if any of your cronies are listening, we have called you out. What you did by putting in a bill for parental notification, no. How about this? Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, let's start there, should not be in any class, health class, gym class, science class, etc., and talking about pornography, puberty blockers, and gender identity. Period, end of sentence, as our governor, Governor Murphy, is fond of saying, period, full stop.
Yeah, but
Get it
then-
out of the
yeah,
classrooms.
right. So let's talk about this for a second, right?
Yeah.
So not me, but a parent, a two dads household with a child, right? And the child is, I don't know, in kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah.
And they come to class, and they, and all the rest of the kids in the class, they talk about their mommy and their daddy.
Right.
And this kid talks about his daddy and his daddy.
Right.
Right. Okay.
The kids don't care.
Exactly. They
The
don't
kids
care. Exactly.
I will tell you this, Larry, I have had plenty of gay parents call the show and express just that, saying, look, gay or straight, you've got these normal families out there that are saying, hold on a minute, raising our kids is our business. And when we introduce sexual identity, sexual preference, gender identity, all of this, it's up to the parents. And I have yet to meet a parent that thinks it's appropriate at 9 years old.
No,
especially 9 or
it's
younger.
unnecessary.
No way.
I even remember when I was in school, and they just started doing sexual education classes, right? And the funny part was, how did you learn sexual education? You learned on the street. Your friend told you, who told him, who told another friend,
Right.
And that's how you really learned. And then you just got it backed up.
That's
by,
how you really learn.
Right. And then you got.
But science and,
No, but
and,
I was
and
there. But I
biology
remember
are separate,
Yeah,
right?
but that's true. But they sent forms out for our
It seems
parents
okay.
to see if
Right.
it was okay. And But I was older. I was, it was a little bit older. I don't know, I think I was 11, 12, or 13 years old.
I don't remember. I think it had to be 5th or 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But again, biology, science, separate from the political agenda
Yes.
of
Yes.
gender identity. Gender identity
Yes.
is something that, in a large portion of the conversation, honestly, has been made up. This is a big hoax. They're basically denying biology of DNA, biology of birth and who you are. They call it gender assignment at birth. What the hell does that mean? It's not like you're picking a homeroom or picking between the chicken cheesesteak or the beef cheesesteak. No, it is, you're born with certain plumbing. You're born with DNA. You're born
sure.
a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with embracing that. And my question has always been this to the radicals. Why is it that if a kid is confused, and kids are confused, again, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, at any point you're having that conversation, we should not be having a serious conversation about your choice of gender.
Yeah.
That aside, the idea that when a kid says, I'm confused, the radical movement, which is why I have called this the transgender political cult, because instead of saying, hey, you're confused, let's determine whether or not you honestly have gender dysphoria and have a psychological condition.
But wait, I agree with you, but what age are you talking about at this point?
Well, could be 5, could
can
be
be
6,
5.
could be very young.
How could someone at 5 or 6 even try to make a
I-
determination?
Okay, so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt
Oh, okay,
to the
I got you.
radicals.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
saying the
that's fine.
radicals
Okay,
are saying,
okay.
this is what they come back and say.
Okay,
They say,
okay.
5 years old, a kid could be gender confused. Okay, let's accept that if that's true.
Okay, that's a tough one for me, but I'll go along with it.
Even
Yeah.
if that's true, why is the only solution to change genders? Why isn't one of the conversations that you have with these kids, no, you were born a boy, that's fine. Embrace being a boy
Yeah,
or embrace
sure.
being a girl.
Sure. That's what we used
left
to
out.
do.
That's right. And that's the key. And a kid, crossing the line, as you had said, putting mom's dress on or lipstick, that doesn't mean they're transgender.
That's right.
It doesn't mean they're transgender.
That means that what's his name? Freud said that a 5 and a 6-year-old, the first thing they do, they want to be their mommy. I mean, it's
Right.
typical psychology.
So my question has always been, first of all, why are we even talking about this in grade school?
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, why are we in total denial that there are some kids that will be confused? That doesn't mean A, they have gender dysphoria, and that certainly doesn't mean B, that they should be encouraged to pursue a transition, wait for it, without the parents' consent.
Yeah, without the parents' consent.
So what this clown Vingo Powell did is he said he got behind it because we beat him up, and he's on the education committee. I'm sure he went to the governor and said, Phil, you got to slow down on this. I'm getting pummeled with thousands of constituent letters.
Great.
And you're welcome, because somebody had to call you out. But the key is that he then tried to say, okay, we'll address the parental consent part of it. And what we're saying is, that's not enough. This is not about saying, hey, guess what, Mom and Dad? We are teaching gender studies and puberty blockers, and at least now you're informed. Well, that's not good enough.
Yeah, sure.
Here's what we want to do. Stop it altogether. The Florida bill was the right bill, and our Parental Bill of Rights covers all of this. It's right on the website, commonsenseclub.org. You can be a signer of our Parental Bill of Rights, which essentially says, stop grooming the kids. Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be talking politics outside
Absolutely
of
not.
history class, let alone gender identity.
I remember there was a couple of classes I went to when I was in high school, and one of the teachers, it was a physics class that I was taking. I was really into it because I'm really, you've seen my studio. I'm into all
Yeah.
this stuff, right? So I'm into physics, and this teacher had to be a left-wing liberal nutcase,
Yeah.
and all he talked about was everything but science.
Right.
He talked about how he did an entire day on his son who was gay and blah blah blah, and we had this, and it was like, I don't really care. I want to learn science. Leave me alone.
Right. It doesn't make sense. They politicize the public schools. What I'm seeing is there's a huge trend toward what we call micro schools. So these are neighborhood schools where mom and dad decide, I want to homeschool, but I don't want to homeschool just with my son or daughter. I'm going to homeschool with 5 or 6 other families.
Right.
And they're bringing in certified teachers to teach. It's taken off. I'd like to see a tax credit
I
go
agree.
to those families.
Yeah, that would be
That's
it. That would be it. But that'll never happen.
Well, you're going to have to elect the right person as governor to get that done in the first 100 days.
Really tough.
So
and I even
it
think,
could happen.
Yeah, well,
you've got to take on the NJEA, and you've got to go after their
all
funding.
the unions, yes.
Well, the teachers union in particular, because they are the most egregious offender, because they're, in many cases in New Jersey, it's 60% of your tax bill at the local level is going to fund the education system. And when you look at that, and then you look at the dues, the $1,400 to $2,000 some teachers are paying in dues. And teachers, by the way, we'll be rolling out a program this summer that identifies 2 10-day windows that you, as a member of the NJEA, can opt out. Now, the NJEA doesn't want you to know this, but it is right there in black and white, but they don't share it with you. So I'm partnering with a couple different groups with the Common Sense Club, and we'll be rolling out by late July, early August, our plan to show teachers in New Jersey how they can opt out. But the same thing can apply in Pennsylvania. The problem is not as bad in Pennsylvania, to be quite honest. You know, the budget here is different. The funding is a little different than it is in Jersey. In Jersey, it's a crisis because families have lost control of the education process.
Well, right here in Bucks County, they were throwing people out of the meetings. Out of the
school board meetings.
The school board meetings.
Right,
Yeah, they were throwing them out of the school board.
right.
I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like what has just happened?
They
But
want to hide it.
all of this was the greatest thing that ever happened to this country. Because all these people are standing up now and saying, no, we're not taking this anymore. We want to know what's going on now.
Right.
And it's about time people actually stood up and said, I do want to know. So the pendulum swung all the way the other way. And unfortunately, I also think that, in my 57 years on this planet, or is it 58 now? I think it's 58 now. I've noticed that, people pay attention to something, and then months later, it's like, oh, no big deal.
I love that you said that, Larry. It's exactly why we are continuing to push our parental bill of rights, and we want citizen signers, because we can't look at this as a victory. I said this about the mask mandate. The mask mandate gets dropped. The governor initially kept the New Jersey Transit mask mandate in place.
No, that was federal.
No. When the
Oh, you mean yesterday.
the judge in Florida declares it invalid, right? So immediately New Jersey Transit kept it in place. And our news in the morning talked about how New Jersey Transit, this was the 6:30 news, I'm live on the air, at 6:43, literally 5 minutes after that news segment ended and I went into my talk, he tweeted, it's now done with New Jersey Transit. Now, what's funny about that, because he knows, look, we're talking to more than 1 million people. The station is huge. The show is huge. The market share has doubled inside of a year and a half. So they know that if we rile up people with knowledge, and remember, it's all knowledge. It's not, we're not.
I need your listenership.
Yeah,
I scream every morning, and 3 people hear me.
That's why we welcome having you on as an advertiser and a client. 4mmw.com is where you go to get tickets to Sunday's event at the Washington Crossing Inn. And I'm involved, so the food's going to be good.
Definitely going to be good.
But the volume of people that are listening, the amount of people listening, the amount of people joining the Common Sense Club, the amount of people that are appearing in our events. As I said, we're going to do this happy hour at 5 to 6 at the Temperance House, or 5:15 to 6:15. That's because I have 2 other events tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And what's happening is we are busy. So I've decided that for April and May, I've thrown it out there that I'm speaking at local club meetings. And what's happening is we're going from 10 people to 150 people.
Great.
It's to build the movement and give people this avenue, because we have the 2022 elections. We've got the 2023 legislative elections, and for those of you in New Jersey, you'll know we gained 3 Senate seats and 7 Assembly seats. We are now 5 seats away in the Senate from a majority, and I believe we are 7 seats away from the same thing in the Assembly. So think about this. You flip 8 seats in the Assembly, 5 seats in the Senate, all of a sudden it's a completely different ballgame. That is significant, and if we can pull that off in 2023, but here's my key. It's not about electing Republicans, and too many people think that it is. You look at a Republican, I mean, to me, you look at Mitch McConnell, John McCain, Mitt Romney, right? All
I voted for it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but it was John McCain that gave us Obamacare. It was, Mitt Romney that literally is complicit in the 74 Americans who, in my opinion, are political prisoners being held in the D.C. jail after this nonsense of January 6th.
I have a friend of mine.
Right? It's bad.
And you know, it was...
Where are their rights?
Not only no rights, they didn't get to talk to an attorney for months. And I actually, as soon as he's out of jail, he's already promised me that we're going to do a complete podcast on this.
I'd love to interview him, too. I'd love to. Maybe when you have him on the podcast, we'll have him on the radio to promote your podcast.
I'll tell you what. I don't even care. Maybe we'll even go to your studio if you want to. But the guy, I got to tell you, this guy, I feel horrible for this guy. And it was so unfair.
It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And the video evidence doesn't lie. When you see the guy...
I will tell you that he did something bad. But
then he should be fined or punished for whatever law he broke.
Well, so they used it. And it's been in the paper, so I'll tell you the story. He was at the rally. He was holding a flag, and a cop pepper sprayed him because they were pepper spraying everybody, and he automatically reacted and started hitting the cop with the flag.
So
he broke the flagpole over the cop.
So he's in
trouble.
It
was on video. So he got. So it's
But Larry, that's the thing. Somebody. First of all, you could argue. I would say this: if this were a situation where the left wanted to use race baiting. The act of even hitting a cop could be excused based on the racial divide that's being taught in the schools with critical race theory, that's being pushed by Black Lives Matter and Antifa and others. So we've got to take a step back, because when you had the riots over the summer of 2020, and you had literally Portland, Seattle, Chicago, all these places Philadelphia was a mess. Ugh. And you literally had people being harassed and beaten and hurt. And the excuse was, well, racial tensions are high, so we're not going to charge anyone. Then you fast forward to January 6th and say, well, he's on video hitting someone. Well, if that were a rally, a Black Lives Matter rally, and it were a black American and a white cop, would he still be suffering the same consequences? I'm only asking the question because I think it deserves to be raised.
The answer's obvious. So you don't even need to.
Right. Now, to me, it was a witch hunt. But to me, if you hold everyone accountable to their individual actions, and you say, look, what you did was assault on a police officer. Yeah. Maybe you reserve the right to be able to sue over the pepper spray, etc. We could argue that.
Well, wait, in Oregon, there's a guy who just won $400 million
for being
$400 million for being pepper sprayed.
Right.
And
so again, to me, the inconsistency in how the law is applied is the problem. And I don't ever remember. I mean, growing up, the racial tensions between black and white has never been worse. And I blame the politicians who are saying it's about tolerance when in fact it's not. It's about a political agenda. Black Lives Matter is a political organization. It's a political movement. Right. This has nothing to do with tolerance. This has nothing to do with racial harmony. We have racial harmony in most communities. In most communities, people don't even see black and white.
I want to hire that guy. I want to hire the people who came up with Black Lives Matter. Yeah. You know why? Because it's such a brilliant name. It sounds so nice, doesn't it?
Well, a friend of mine had a funny line. She said, if it was Black Lives Also Matter.
Right, exactly.
Nobody would have objected.
That's exactly right. Not only
right.
I would have been saying,
matter.
Of course, of course.
But you can't say all lives matter.
No, you can't.
You're somehow a bigot.
Right.
So the conversation has really gone off the rails. And I think that to pull it back, we have to bring about common sense. We have to empower parents and average normal people who don't have a political agenda. It's possible to do that. We knew that with the huge audience that I had on the radio, the only way to organize that into an effective movement was to build an organization around it. So we built Common Sense Club. Then from Common Sense Club, we're now empowering local Republican groups. Now, people say, well, isn't that partisan? It's not, for this reason, and let me explain. The Democratic Party has gone off the deep end. The Democratic Party with, even AOC seems like a moderate compared to some of the crazy
Really? You think so?
Well, the stuff you hear with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, I mean, it's inexcusable at many levels. It's very anti-American. It's very inflammatory. It's anti-business, anti-parent, etc. So when you look at the Democratic Party as a vehicle, you look at Pennsylvania and how radical Governor Wolf is. The only reason Governor Wolf was kept in check a little bit was because the Republicans in the legislature sued him. They went after him in court. They did push back. In New Jersey, the same thing didn't happen. So I looked at this and said, okay, you got a New Jersey Republican State Committee, the NJGOP, who lost their office. Right, they don't have an office right now. Now think about that for a minute. When a former chairman took over a few years ago, he and I had a beer a couple of months ago, and he said, you know, when I took over, we had 80 donors. 80. State of 9 million people, the Republican Party had 80 donors. So why did that happen? Well, because corrupt Republicans, and when I say corrupt, I don't mean they broke the law. I mean they're morally corrupt. They're morally bankrupt. They don't believe anymore in the principles of this great country. They believe in themselves and their own ambition. Yeah. So morally bankrupt Chris Christie gutted the Republican Party, and there was no recruiting, no candidates, no training, no fundraising, nothing. So I look at this and say, okay, opportunity. Opportunity to admit, first of all, that there are only two parties. So you're not going to go off on a Libertarian Party. It's not going to happen. The progressives have found that out. There's one party, the Democrats. Progressives took that over. I look at it and say, there's one party that can fight this, the Republicans. But we can't let these establishment, elite, corporate Republicans run the party. So I have been on a mission. Every day on the radio, I mention this. In New Jersey, unaffiliated voters, and there are more than 2 million of you in the state, out of 5 million voters, 2 million are unaffiliated. You have the opportunity to show up on June 7th in the Republican primary, declare yourself a Republican, and vote in that primary. Imagine if in each congressional district we had 20, 30,000. You could win a congressional primary literally with 50,000 votes, maybe 75,000 depending on the turnout. So if you had 10, 15...
So do you believe that the elections are still, there's still election integrity?
Well, we have to continue to fight for it. I'll tell you this. There is fraud. No doubt about it.
There's
cheating.
Always been some fraud.
Always.
But what happened in the last election is unexplainable.
Unexplainable and unconscionable when you look at what happened. Look at Philadelphia when they literally put paper over the windows, wouldn't let you see the counting.
Right.
So all of this is real and has happened. You have to accept, though, that what the other side wants, they want you not to vote. They want to scare you that your vote doesn't count, so they tell you not to vote.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that the new plan is, now we scared all the Republicans into saying no vote.
Right.
So
you got to vote.
So
you vote
now,
by mail.
Now you got to have
in person. You got to flood them. It's harder to cheat when turnout is 60 to 70%. Look at Virginia. Glenn Youngkin won with almost 60% turnout. In New Jersey, the Republican, who was a complete buffoon, lost, but we only had less than 40% turnout. So where are those million other voters that should have turned out? They didn't show up because they were not inspired. Because they
why
like
do you
us.
think people don't vote?
I think they're disgusted with the two choices. Let's face it, Larry. You've got a primary system that is completely corrupt. Why? Because in New Jersey in particular, there I'm an expert. I don't know about Pennsylvania if it's as bad as New Jersey, but probably.
I look at it as bad all over the country. So.
Well, what they do in New Jersey is they meet as a convention in each county. So 21 counties have 21 county conventions. And the people who serve on the county committee that get a vote in the county convention are typically working in some capacity that the county chairman holds some sway over their job. So guess how you're going to vote? You're going to vote with the chairman. You're going to vote with the board. So they then pick in the back room, a bunch of guys sit down and say, here's who it's going to be. They're going to get the line. But a funny thing happened. Two things have happened. Number one, the call for unaffiliated voters is starting to resonate. I'm going out to more events. We're getting 80, 90, 100 people at these events, and a lot of people saying, hey, I was unaffiliated, but I'm voting on June 7th. So that's number one. Again, it's anecdotal. We'll see where the numbers fall out. But the other thing is huge. There's a race in the 4th congressional district in New Jersey. You're not even going to know what that is, but that stretches from central New Jersey, the capital area, out to the shore. Big swath of the state. Happens to be a huge part of my listenership. The incumbent congressman is Chris Smith. You've probably heard of Chris Smith.
Sure.
Chris Smith is, no doubt, one of the champions when it comes to veterans affairs, when it comes to fighting human trafficking, and when it comes to standing up for the unborn. That said, same congressman has been in office for more than 40 years. Voted with Biden and Pelosi on the infrastructure bill. Voted to fund the vaccine databases. So I called him. A big problem. So I texted him. He's a friend of mine. I said, Chris, what are you doing? You're making it so hard for me to support you. What are you doing? Instead of understanding that he made a mistake, they doubled down. You don't understand. Came right back at me. So I said, well, you don't understand. I cannot support somebody who defends voting with Biden and Pelosi. And I had a very simple point about it. Their point was this is going to give $6 to $8 billion back to New Jersey for our transportation infrastructure, which we desperately need. Anybody that drives on the roads in New Jersey knows we need it. We need it with the trains, the buses, and the potholes.
I'm a proponent of the infrastructure bill. I'm just not a proponent of the waste inside the infrastructure bill. That's all.
billions of dollars in waste. Billions.
Yeah, of course.
Most of this infrastructure bill was about the Green New Deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't about putting guys to work and fixing the roads. So what I said to Chris was, you're going to take that $6 to $8 billion. You're not going to give it to conscientious people that want to build the infrastructure. You're going to give it to the Murphy regime and the Democratic majority in Trenton, and they'll decide how it's spent.
And they're going to steal the money.
Disaster.
Yeah.
And I said, in a few short months, we are likely to have a Republican majority in the House. Table the bill until then. They didn't want to hear any part of that. So here's what happened, and here's the end of this story. There were 3 guys that stepped up to challenge Chris Smith. A guy named David Berg, a guy named Mike Blasey, and a guy named Mike Crispy. David Berg, very accomplished guy, entertainment attorney from LA, huge resume. He's already dropped out. Mike Blasey, former cop, another good guy, he's still in the race, but he's not raising any money. And Mike Crispy took it so seriously that he organized a slate. And we haven't seen this happen. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. The challenger candidate to the Republican incumbent organized an entire slate of candidates. Actually, one of the events I'm speaking at tonight is for Gary Rich, a guy running against Sean Golden, who is the Republican sheriff in Monmouth County, also the county chairman. How that is legal, I have no idea. But here's the guy with the top law enforcement job bullying people in the back room in politics. So I'm going to support Gary Rich, who's challenging him in the primary. That said, he organized an entire slate. Then you are going to love this. In New Jersey, the way they pick ballot position in the counties is with capsules. And the name of the candidate goes in the capsule. So the old trick is you take the capsule that you want to be picked for your guy and you put it in the freezer. So it's colder than the other capsules.
No kidding.
So when you stick your hand in and you pick, you feel for the cold one, you pull it out. So what did Mike Crispy do? He bought a temperature gun. And they showed up with a lawyer.
Wow.
And they took the temperature of every one of the capsules before they were put in. He won column A in the 2 biggest counties, Ocean County and Monmouth County. So now, forgetting that the county awarded the line to Chris Smith and the regular Republicans, the America First Republicans are now in the first column. So he's got a legit shot at winning. And what I have said to my friends on the Chris Smith side, some are upset with me because I've been friends with him a long time. I have the awkward position of hosting the New Jersey Right to Life dinner on Friday, April 29th, where I'll be introducing him. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. But again, I don't take this personally. And Congressman Smith, if you're listening or any of your supporters are listening, you shouldn't take it personally either. I believe in primaries, and I believe that every elected official, whether you're friends with them or not, should be held accountable to their votes at every level. So if you truly believe that those votes were appropriate, then make that case to the voters. But don't try to hide from the actual record. There is a 2-man race going on right now between Mike Crispy and Chris Smith. Mm-hmm. May the best man win. But it's exciting to see that now how many points does column A get you? And how often have these corrupt insider elites in the back room literally stolen elections by freezing a capsule?
That's amazing.
And that's just one thing that we know of. So, to your point, is there election integrity? Yes, but you have to be vigilant. You got to show up with a temperature gun and a lawyer. You got to sue them. The former nominee for
but how did they find that out? How did they? Somebody, the whistleblower.
Somebody told them. Hey, this is what they're doing.
Yeah, okay.
This is what they're doing. Don't let them do it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, word gets out, but it wasn't going to happen because, and no disrespect to David Berg or Mike Blasey, who ran intelligent, thoughtful, patriotic campaigns. They didn't have the organizational structure that Crispy had. They didn't build a slate. They didn't even go to the convention. And it's one thing to point the finger and say, they're keeping me out. What Crispy did is he kicked in the door. He said, you're going to have me here. And he lost, but he didn't care losing because he won on the ballot placement, and that was where the important thing was.
Pretty awesome.
And he only won it by chance, but it's funny how lucky, hardworking, smart people are. Right?
So I have a question for you. So you are so deep into this. This is amazing to me. I mean, if I wanted to know the politics of New Jersey, I don't even think I'd call a politician. I'd call you.
Nah, give me a call. I got you covered.
You're right. So how long ago was it that you actually started diving into all of this?
I was. It's going to sound crazy. I mean, I was in high school, and one of the first arguments that I had in politics was with my sophomore. I think it was either my communications teacher or history teacher. I don't remember exactly, but I wrote a paper about the seatbelt law. opposing the mandatory seatbelt law in New Jersey, and I was, I don't know, 15. How old are you in sophomore year?
Yeah.
And I got energized by that fight.
Really?
Because the teacher called me out, and it wasn't as, let's debate this, you're raising a point, I'm raising a point, let's have a discussion. No, even then, I mean, I'm 53, so you're going back a few years, I was berated and ridiculed, and how could you even have that position?
Wow.
And the other kids in class didn't even know why at 15 I even cared about having a position. But it was, look, I grew up in an Italian household, and we would fight over the dinner table, and my father would watch TV. We always had the TV news, Channel 6, Jim Gardner. Jim Gardner still on TV today.
Remember,
unbelievable.
I was in New Jersey for a long time, so I know.
So we would have.
I had escaped because of the taxes.
I get it. But we would have the local news playing, the local Philly news. I grew up in Cherry Hill, born in Camden, grew up in Cherry Hill. I've lived in 5 different counties in Jersey, lived in Boston, lived in D.C. We picked Princeton as our home where we would raise our kids. I'd build my business and raise a family and hopefully prosper and, quite honestly, Larry, retire. But I can't get my kids, my daughter in London, my son in San Diego, to even consider moving back to Jersey until we fix it. So I'm on a mission to fix it. Stay tuned for what I'm going to do politically. But what you need to know right now is that we built the Common Sense Club. We are focused on the 2022 primaries as personally, not with the Common Sense Club. The Common Sense Club role in this is to put the ideas out and to hear the ideas and give parents an opportunity and business owners and taxpayers an opportunity to be heard on the issues. If the politicians want to pay attention to that, I'd say they'd be well served.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, look, I want to just talk to a couple people. There's a couple people online, real quick. A couple people ask you what your website is.
Okay.
See that? I can't see what the other one. You guys are great. I listen to Larry.
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate that.
But listen, Mick. Right at 8 o'clock, you want to put Bill on.
Because 7:30 to 8, they're listening to you.
Is my show. After that, yeah, right.
Fair enough. My website is simple, commonsenseclub.org. That's it. commonsenseclub.org. It will, and my apologies for the pop-up, but the pop-up is working because people need help because they're too busy. So when you click on commonsenseclub.org, it immediately pops up if you want to sign our Parental Bill of Rights. I encourage you to do so. You don't have to pay any money to do it. I will tell you, $10 a month, you get our premium content, and it will be well worth that investment because we interact. I interact with you on social media. We have a lot of premium content that is behind that, and we did that, just so you know, to make sure we could pay to keep the group moving forward. It's that simple. It costs a lot of money to keep people to manage the website. The website, you'll see, very cool, very interactive, but it costs money to do that. So in order to subsidize that, we're charging $10 a month. However, you can become a citizen signer for free. You can actually get our emails for free. You do not have to pay anything. I want to be clear with that, but we'd love to have you as a paid member, $10 a month. It's a small investment for the future of the country.
By the way, if you want to get fired up, read some of these emails.
Right?
I'm like, Aah!
and all the emails that I sign, I either wrote to start or I edited what somebody else is. So I am actively involved. We do not have a fundraising or writing machine out there. There's no one out there that is speaking for me. If you get an email that is signed by me, I wrote that email. That's coming straight from the heart.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something that's great. Actually,
you got to be involved.
Yeah, we actually just had Mike post it so everybody can see the website too, so they can know what it is. That's awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna be going over to the Temperance House in a little while.
Yeah.
What do you any last words?
For me, I don't know. I haven't stopped talking since literally 6 o'clock this morning. So I think I've said what is important, and I guess I can wrap up with this. The fight to save the country has just started. And you cannot take, let me circle back if it's okay.
Please.
Point I made earlier that when the mask mandate got dropped, the judge in Florida dropped it, and everyone in succession said, okay, forget it. Amtrak, done. The airline's done. Here's the problem. And I'm not going to call out any media organization that I may or may not have worked for in the past. But when you see certain news organizations use the term protective mask and say that we no longer need it because the pandemic has turned endemic and is now just a seasonal virus, beware, because they have not embraced the fact that we never needed the masks. Never, ever, ever. They did nothing but cause emotional trauma, psychological difficulties, and physical difficulties. Ask any eye doctor out there how many more patients they have because people have been breathing that bacteria up into their eyes. Their offices are full, right?
Yeah,
that skin conditions and everything else. Not just that, but the isolation and the social isolation that happened. The masks never worked. Sweden proved the point. 1.8 million children age 0 to 15 stayed in school or daycare through the entire pandemic, all of 2020. Not one died. No masks, no distance, no lockdown. So the point has been proved. Sweden got it right. Do not let these charlatans tell you that the only reason you can unmask now is because we solved it. No, they didn't. They extended something that honestly was done. Look at the curve. Don't just take my word for it. Look at any media report out there that is honest about reporting on the World Health Organization and the CDC, and you look at those COVID numbers, end of April, May, and June 2020, the curve was flat without a vaccine and in countries that did not lock down like Sweden. And South Korea, by the way. But in Sweden, they proved the point about the masks. Never again should we lock down. Never again should we put a mask on. And never again should you be fooled by listening to these mainstream media hacks. Don't listen to them. There are a couple guys out there you want to watch and follow. Alex Berenson. He is a former New York Times reporter, independent journalist. Another guy, Jordan Schachtel. Fantastic independent journalist. He's been spot on with all the propaganda coming out of Ukraine. And my friend James O'Keefe, Jersey guy who started Project Veritas. Those three independent journalists are spot on when it comes to COVID, when it comes to January 6th, when it comes to all of the things happening in the Biden economy and how they're choking us and driving up the price of fuel, the price of food. All of this is designed for greater government control. Stand with me, fight back. I'm not going to steer you wrong. CommonSenseClub.org.
I love it. I love it, man. This is awesome.
So I guess I had something else to say.
No, that was great. I was actually. We need a soapbox for you. You already got a soapbox.
I'm always giving a speech.
You got the biggest microphone in New Jersey. So.
Yeah. Well, thank God. And I will tell you, it's been a battle to keep it. You know, not everybody agrees with me, as you can imagine.
I would imagine that your station must be. You know what I did notice? I did notice like every once in a while I'll put on like Dennis and Judy or something, and I'll notice that they're getting a little more brave.
Yes, actually, Dennis and Judy, I think they've been great through this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever talk ill about the station, about the corporation, or about the about my colleagues. But I will say this: it has been challenging, only because, early on, the woke folks thought, "What are you doing? How are you disagreeing with Fauci? How are you calling this out?" I started calling out this pandemic nonsense in February of 2020 on one issue. They canceled March Madness. And I'm not a huge bettor, but what I was upset about, and I did a show when I had Chasing News on Fox TV, and I did it on the radio as well, I said, you are putting people that collect tickets, that clean the bathrooms, that serve the beer out of work.
I said the same exact thing.
Right?
I said the same exact thing. It's like,
what?
Yeah, exactly. For what?
Without any science to show that a lockdown was going to solve anything.
That's right.
And now we've proved it. Somebody explained to me what's going on in Shanghai right now. Look at Shanghai. 25 million people under house arrest.
But wait, think about this, right? The stadium got tons of money to stay closed, but the worker got unemployment. They got an extra $300 a week. Unemployment, that doesn't solve the problem.
What it did was it didn't address the real problem. The real problem was that we had paid political scientists acting as doctors, shutting down all of the legit doctors out there. And I was quoting them from the beginning. Dr. Martin Kulldorff from Harvard, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, Dr. Sunetra Gupta from Oxford, and others, Dr. Marty McCary from Johns Hopkins. Thoughtful people that were saying, guys, we have natural immunity. Guys, it's not as deadly. Remember the Princess cruise ship?
Yeah, sure.
I think it was Princess something.
Yeah,
Princess
it was
Lund.
Princess. Yeah, I'm a big cruiser.
That was one of the. I've never gone on a cruise, and
you'd enjoy it.
But maybe, right? I don't know. But I'll say this:
we should do a politics cruise.
We should do that. I would love that.
We'll talk about that.
But the issue was that you essentially had a human petri dish, and you had a cruise ship full of vulnerable people, but only a handful of deaths. Why? Nobody got off the ship. It was all contained.
There was
I thought there was 7, but maybe you're right.
But it was 52 people who got it. It was nothing.
Right.
Come on.
So in this enclosed space on a cruise ship, you had a virus that was supposed to be the most deadly thing in the world, that was justification for crashing the world economy in a contained environment, and only a handful of people died. How did we not take the cruise ship and say, that's the model, guys. It's not going to kill millions of
Did
people.
you know,
You're lying about that.
I'm a big cruiser, so I got pretty, like, I get connected. I talk to some of the captains sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that on every cruise ship that goes out, approximately 1 to 3 people die on that cruise ship because they're elderly.
Really?
Yeah, they just die.
That's a wild statistic. I've never heard that.
This is what the captain told us.
Yeah.
We want a tour, and that's what they told. They said, we have that happens all the time.
Well, you got a couple thousand people, right? Everybody's at different stages of their life.
But it's just people, right? And they're at the end of their life,
Right.
and they're going on a cruise either for the first time or their 10th cruise, and they want to have their final cruise. What happened was we were on one of our cruises, and the boat was. Had to change course to meet a helicopter that was going to pick up a patient who didn't die yet, right?
Got it.
And then and then we were talking to the captain. He was explaining to us. He told us these statistics, and we were like, "Wow!"
You don't think of that.
And no one ever talks about it because what are you going to talk about it? So then you got these people dying of coronavirus. How many of those people would have died anyway?
Well, and I said this when the CDC came out and admitted that 75% of those who died who were fully vaccinated had 4 comorbidities. It taught us one thing. We also know that 94% of all the deaths recorded in the U.S. had 3 or more comorbidities.
This is insane.
So that means almost every single person that died had at least 3 things that could have killed them independently.
They didn't die of COVID. They died with COVID.
Right. So that's
which sickens.
But we're going to get shut down on YouTube.
I
for
know.
saying
Okay,
that.
I know. We're doing it
But
again.
here's why it's important to talk about now, because you can never let a bureaucrat like Dr. Fauci ever take control of this country again. And I will say this, and I was a huge supporter of President Trump's. He was on my radio show, hoping to get him back on again. I think we had a great interview.
Awesome.
Yeah, I had him on for 10 minutes. I could do a whole podcast just on the conversation that led up to the president coming on. So we'll do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
In a few weeks.
Sure.
But a lot of fun, and I like him, and I respect him. His mistake was he didn't take back control of the country.
He didn't fire Fauci.
Should have fired him right away.
He should have fired. No,
on
not
Mother's
right
Day.
away.
On
Not
Mother's
right
Day.
away.
When he said reopen on Mother's Day, when we didn't,
right.
That's it.
Well, you watched it, and you watched. Look, Trump was concerned. Everyone was concerned. I know I was concerned. I know you were concerned. We didn't know exactly. I mean, I'm like, what's going on here? But then I didn't see people die. No,
we knew by the end of March.
People died. I mean, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't like if this pandemic was as bad as it was.
Right.
My neighbor should be walking out of the house and dropping dead. That's what they made it sound like.
You remember? I don't know if you can even find it on Google now, but there was a video,
sure
viral video of a Chinese businessman. I guess he was a businessman. He was in a business suit, walking out of a store with shopping bags, collapses, and
I do remember that
died
video.
on the street. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 5 guys in hazmat suits are dragging the body away.
Yeah.
Now, you look at that and you're like, wait a minute. Could I walk out of my house and drop dead? I get why people were slightly concerned. By April 7th, at 5 o'clock, the pandemic was over. The health crisis portion was over. Why do I say that? Dr. Daniel Murphy, head of emergency medicine at the time at St. Barnabas in the Bronx, literally the hottest spot in the world in the Bronx, he said at 5 o'clock on April 7th, we had more beds than patients. That was it.
Yeah.
At that moment, the president should have come out and said, this health crisis is over, get back to work. Come on.
Totally
and we had a
with
treatment for it the whole time.
And it was funny. I actually wondered, it was funny. I was like having all these conspiracy theories in my head. Like, what did they have? Barron held hostage somewhere and they got a gun to his head? Because a lot of things Trump did during that time,
made no sense.
I didn't understand it at all.
No. He was surrounded by deep state players who had an agenda that was not public health. I mean, what's going on in Shanghai clearly has nothing to do with public health.
Of course.
What's going on in Philadelphia right now? Philadelphia brought the mask mandate back. That has nothing to do with public health.
Right. The only airport in the entire country you still have to wear a mask in
LA is
Philadelphia.
the other one.
Oh, is it?
LA and Philly, that's it. So the good news is I'll be flying again because I have not worn a mask since it started.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I just wouldn't do it.
I'm going to tell you that I wore a mask for exactly a half an hour.
Oh, tell me.
I'm going to tell you the story. And if you remember, I actually did this test, and I tested masks. I don't know if
that's right.
Yeah.
Remember.
So if you guys didn't know about this, go to followtherealscience.com, followtherealscience.com, and you'll see my mask experiment. Now, you have to understand, I had no idea how it was going to turn out. In fact, I asked a doctor friend of mine who is pro-mask to help me with this experiment. And you want to know why I did this experiment? I did this experiment because I'm sitting here going, this is ridiculous. How can I make a mask, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what if I'm wrong?
Right.
What if they really
Test it.
do something, right? You know, and I actually said to her, I said, look, if this turns out that these masks are important, I'm going to be wearing mine.
Right, because you don't want to get sick.
Right. When I was ready
Got
to
it.
get sick, you know, I felt that I was, you know,
Right.
I'm
So what happened?
protecting others.
Right.
You know, I don't
How'd
even
that
tell
work
you
out?
what happened. You need to go.
All right, check the website out.
I know you. I know we talked about it before, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really need to go there.
What is it? Follow the science.com?
Follow the real.
Follow the real
science.com, which
I
I
love
can't
it.
believe I was able to buy.
I love it.
And then I bought
love it.
the billboard that said masks don't work, and I
love
had
it.
that follow the real science.com.
It's great.
And it didn't get me the publicity I thought it would, but what are you gonna do?
So, so I know we got to wrap up. We got to head to the
Yeah.
Temperance House. Meet us there if you can. Otherwise, hit us up on the web at
That's funny.
4mmw.com and check out this financial seminar that Larry's got.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of
going
fun
on.
with it. That'd be a blast.
It's gonna be
And
great.
I'm looking forward to hanging out with you some more.
Yeah,
but
it's
we're
gonna
gonna
be
go over there. So if anybody's over there, we'll see you tonight.
Awesome.
All right, take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Larry.